Matthew, Ezekiel Elliott plays the Eagles on Monday night, of course, on ESPN. You a little bit nervous here about Zeke?
Yeah, he made my hate list. Now, understand hate is a relative word, of course.
Right.
Like, I ranked him as running back 15 prior to the Thursday night games. Obviously,
Okay.
Chris McCaffrey out, so now he moves up to 14 for the week. But so I ranked him at 15, which is still a starter, right? You're still starting running back 15. I still think he's productive, but it's not the top 5 guy you drafted him to be. And I'm concerned with this Eagles run defense. They have played very, very well. The Eagles, right? The Eagles held the San Francisco 49ers running backs to I want to say 3.6 yards per carry. You know, a pretty good run stuffing team. They did a good job with that last week as well. Tony Pollard is a thing. They're going to. My expectation is that the way that you beat the Eagles, this is going to be they're going to have to throw. They're going to have to throw again. And so when they've been throwing, they've been using Tony Pollard quite a bit. So do I think he gets the majority of the work on Monday night? I do. But do I think he's as effective as you hoped he would be? I don't. I'm a little concerned about him, right? You know, like, again, Hammond's running back 15. You're still starting Ezekiel Elliott, but I don't think he returns the value at the moment of where you drafted him, and you drafted him probably in the top 5, 6, or 7 among players overall.
And speaking of truly hard seltzer, a reminder to pick every NFL matchup for a shot at prizes with Pigskin Pick'em, presented by Truly Hard Seltzer. Play at ESPN.com/pigskinpick'em or on the ESPN Fantasy app. Daniel, I'm just going to ask you out loud because I'm make sure I'm doing the right thing. Do you want to go back to is trust a strong word?
No, let's go back up to the top. I mean, it's all part of that because it's whether or not we trusted Zeke this week, understanding how Tony Pollard has looked. But
got it.
Josh Allen's another guy.
We're going to play a game of Is Trust a Strong Word? Here's what we're going to do, by the way, is I've got the touch screen here, which we can navigate at the very end or right now, but we're going to go through some of these players, whether to trust them or not. We just sort of overviewed some concerns for Zeke Elliott. But, Matthew, how about Josh Allen, who has been in a bit of a funk relative to his own standards for the first 2 weeks, but will that continue on Sunday against the Washington football team?
I don't believe the struggles will continue. He's a love for me this week. Again, so going in to week 3, I think he's QB 19. I mean, you know, which is crazy. He's not been a top 15 fantasy quarterback either week that he's been playing. I mean, this is a guy that went second overall among most quarterbacks. He was generally drafted second or third overall. Okay, but going against Washington, right? Going against Washington, I feel like he will get better. You know, one of the concerns is like he's not running for touchdowns. He had a touchdown that was. You know, he was down at the 1-yard line last week. I think maybe if that gets in the end zone, the narrative changes on him a little bit. Washington's been bad, by the way, right? I mean, like, let's be clear. You know, Justin Herbert had a nice game against them in week 1. Daniel Jones obviously had a monster game against them in week number 2. Washington has been bad. I'm a believer in that Josh Allen, the rushing attempts will get there. He will start running for touchdowns, and I think he has a lot of success at home against the Washington football team. I'm as a top 5 play this week.
It's a back-on-track week for Josh Allen. Let's move forward to Ryan Tannehill, Matthew. This is an interesting one. My gut, and this is somebody who's having to choose between Ryan Tannehill and Justin Fields in the War Room League, by the way, but my gut is that Ryan Tannehill gets back on track in a major way on Sunday. What do you think?
The Colts have been brutal this week, this year, I should say. The Colts have been one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I mean, you saw Russell Wilson pick them apart, right? I mean, like the Colts have been bad, and so I think this is a get-right game for Ryan Tannehill. Again, as we talked about, had the touchdown called back from Julio Jones. Derrick Henry ends up going nuts. Still threw for, what did he throw for, 400 yards?
I think it was 377.
377 last week against Seattle. Tannehill did. We believe in his talent. This is a guy who's been very productive fantasy-wise ever since he took over for Marcus Mariota, year and a half ago. My expectation is at home against the Colts, a Colts team that, by the way, might be turning it over and giving the Titans good field position with Brett Hundley under center. Give me Ryan Tannehill. He makes my love list this week.
By the way, we're doing the yes-no category for whether they exceed their Week 3 projections or not. How about Saquon Barkley, Matthew, who I have outside my top 10, but you do not?
Yeah, I like him against Atlanta. I mean, honestly, 10 days to rest. Listen, if Saquon Barkley can't do it this week, then it's time to really hit the panic button.
I've already done that, by the way.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you. I do not blame you. I mean, I was out on Barkley in the preseason, so I'm not hitting the panic button because I have 15 leagues and I have Saquon Barkley and exactly 0 of them.
Yeah, me too. I have 0.
I mean, so, but having said that, for those of you who do have Saquon Barkley on your team, I do think this is a week that will be good. Falcons allow the 4th most running back yards per carry before contact, which is one of the areas where he has struggled so far this year because of the offensive line. My expectation is it's a bad defense in Atlanta. Teams have run all over them. 10 days to rest after the Thursday night game. If Saquon can't do it against the Falcons, he may not be able to do it this year. You have to be very nervous. But I'm as a top 8 play this week. So, yes, I'm trusting Saquon against the Falcons. If you drafted him, like, you're sort of pot committed at this point, I feel like.
Yeah, the big thing I want to see from Saquon is I just want to see some passing game usage, some designed passing game usage. I was, last week we shared the stat about how 14 of his 23 carries so far this year have gone for 2 yards or fewer. Some chimed back in, and this was appropriately so, that's been kind of the story of his career, is he's never been a guy who's consistently gaining big chunks of yardage. It's that he has home run ability plus pass catching ability. We have not seen that pass catching ability on display. I'd love to see that here in week 3. How about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Matthew? I've got him way out. I've got him at 24, outside my top 20. I would not be starting him this week. Would you?
Not if I could help it. I mean, listen, I am at running back 19, but it's, which is, again, after sort of the, after McCaffrey's out. It's a good matchup. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game between the Chiefs and the Chargers. So I think it's a very high-scoring game. He's on the field a lot. And honestly, it's just sort of like, you start looking at some of the matchups when you get down there, like some of the guys in that range. Like, you don't feel great about Mike Davis with the Cordero Patterson usage, right? You don't feel great about Myles Gaskin going against the Raiders because of the usage, because they're going to have a backup quarterback, and how effective is that offense and slow pace of play, right? So you start getting in the guys that are in that range, and you're sort of like, well, give me the running back that's part of a high-scoring game that's on one of the best offenses. But listen, if you're out on CEH, I get it. So I'm barely as a top 20 play this week as a low-end RB2, but sort of depends on your options. Damian Harris has a tough, matchup against the Saints, right? It's just, I just didn't love any of the other guys in sort of that range.
It's amazing, though. Like, there were 3 things you could sort of hang your hat on process-wise when you had CEH wherever you had him last year. 1, he could fall into the end zone 10 times. Nope, he has 0 touchdowns this year. 2, first player in SEC history with 1,000 rush yards and 50 or more catches in a single season. He has 29 receiving yards this season. 3, explosive runs. He's a shifty guy, right? 0 runs of 10 or more yards this year.
The other positive here is that I think it's a really good matchup, right? I mean, Antonio Gibson had a monster game against the Chargers in week 1. Both Zeke and Tony Pollard had very good games against them in week 2.
All right, so I
think it's a good matchup play. I think it's a high-scoring game. He is the starting running back of that team. Like, he didn't convert it, but he got a goal line carry last week. So
we'll keep moving here then to other players.
If you want, I can keep trying to talk myself into this. I clearly don't feel super confident about CEH.
Let's move forward here.
I have him as a borderline top 20 play this week. I do.
Let's rip through the rest of these, Matthew, with the opportunity to get into love-hate further after this. Tony Pollard had a great game last week. I don't know what his week 3 projection is, but are you more optimistic or pessimistic for Tony Pollard?
I'm a little more optimistic. Again, I think when you think about the Philadelphia Eagles, right, and it's a really good defensive line, although they lose Graham on the edge, that's a loss. So my expectation is the way you attack the Eagles for Dallas is the way they attacked Tampa Bay in week 1, which is on the edges and passing, short passes, middle of the field. They obviously have great wide receivers. I think you'll see Tony Pollard involved. Tony Pollard's a thing. Tony Pollard's going to be he's been very productive so far this year. There's absolutely no reason for Mike McCarthy to say, like, I need less of that in what should be a high-scoring game on Monday night. I'm more confident in Tony Pollard, especially in this matchup. I have him as a flex play this week.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.